This is Coach Hyde bringing you part 3 of the end of the year science review. Remember that this sheet of paper was not created by me. We're borrowing it to use it as a way to review you of some big topics that have been discussed in science. This year we spent a lot of time talking about reproduction and genetics. And this is our only little part on this sheet that has anything to do with that. So when an organism adapts, there's two different categories that we could divide that into, main categories: structure versus function. A structural adaptation, this is the actual body part. This is the thing that that organism has, and the function is what it does. When I was in school, we were talking about the human body. There was parts of the human body that they didn't think was necessary, that there was no use. It was something that maybe ancient man needed, or, if you want to go in the evolutionary route, millions of years ago, human beings needed, and there's no actual purpose. One of those things was the appendix. Modern science has now found, medicine has found, that the appendix is actually important. It's a depository of gut bacteria that we need if something happens to our system, or we flush the healthy bacteria that live there, then the appendix can resupply it. So just because we don't know the reason for it doesn't mean there is not a reason. That's one of the goals of science, and medicine in particular, is to continue to learn more. So inherited traits, learned behaviors. Well, this is trying to tell us that we are more than just one or the other, that our inherited traits from our genetic code, these are things that we are given because of sexual reproduction and the way genes are passed. Inherited traits, we get a set from our mother and a set from our father, and based on what allele is traded and what is dominant and what is recessive, it'll show up as a trait. So the big one we used this year was hair color: brown hair color versus blonde hair color. Brown is dominant, blonde is recessive. So we talked about a lot of that this year. Another thing is learned behaviors. This is what we learn as an organism by watching and observing. Looks like I might have spelled that wrong. So y'all make fun of me. Tell me below in the comments if I misspelled that, if there's supposed to be an E. Observing, I don't know. Guys, stay in school, learn your spelling. So this is, we learn things from our parents through experience, through watching, and because we're a communicative species, they can talk to us, they can do direct instruction. So when we're talking about inherited traits versus learned behaviors, this is genetically decided for us, and this is something that we learn by observing, by our experiences. Now let's move over here to metamorphosis. We've got two different types of metamorphosis. We've got complete, and we can contrast that with incomplete. So basically it's just talking about the steps that we have. We're first going to start with the egg. The egg hatches and we have the larva stage. Larva then to the pupa. The pupa is a fun word to say. And finally the adult. Incomplete metamorphosis, we're going to have the egg. And we're going to have the adult, but instead of that larva and pupa, we're going to call this the nymph stage. All right, let's move over to this side. So talking about some more life science, environmental science type issues. The ecosystem is a community of living and non-living things. Living things, well, here's some examples. We've got plant life. Okay. We've got fungi. Okay. We've got animals not pictured. Okay, we've got bacteria. All things that are alive. Non-living things, well, we have water and sun. Supposed to be sand, rocks. Okay. So our ecosystem is comprised or composed of the living things in the area and the non-living things in the area. Interdependency is when organisms rely on each other, where they rely on each other to survive. If one disappears, the other one is probably going to disappear if it cannot change. Food chains. Food chains are the flow of energy from one organism to another organism. So here we have a nice little organism, and here we have put some sharp teeth. He's going to eat that one, and we could track the flow of energy from this guy over here to this guy. Food webs, well, food web is just a more complicated depiction of the way it really is, and there's lots of food chains. Problem with food chains, showing the flow of energy from, the thing that produces the energy, a producer, all the way to an apex predator, is too simplified. In reality, there's lots of pieces going in an ecosystem to be able to show that. All right, let's scoot down here and go to elements of an ecosystem. I just use this word producer. And again, we get some colorful pictures here. That's what I'm looking for to get your grade. A producer, this is an organism that makes its own food. And for most, what we're talking about is through photosynthesis. They make their own food. We've got a plant, photosynthesis, bacteria, photosynthesis. There's some special other organisms that also can make their own food, like in deep ocean vents and things like that. But here we have an organism that makes its own food. Color me a pretty flower. Then we have a consumer. This is an organism, okay, that must consume or eat another organism for its food. Okay. Consume, consumer. Decomposer, okay, breaks down the dead. Breaks down and eats the dead. This is how they get their nutrition. So producers die, consumers die, they will become food for the decomposer. So on the right-hand side, we've got some further classification of types of consumers. We have the murderous herbivores who they kill and eat all those lovely plants. Don't they know that flower and that piece of grass have feelings too? Okay. For Angelina, who said she was going vegan, how dare you kill that flower? So here we have a carnival. I think that's supposed to be an otter. I don't know what I just called this, a carnivore. I think I might have just said carnival. Make fun of me in the comments below if that was the case. This little otter is only going to eat meat. guess probably need to put eats only meat. And then we have things like us and bears, omnivores eat both plants and animal meat. I'll change it to animal just to be different. Omnivores eat, messing up my grammar. Anyway, they eat both plants and animals. A carnivore eats only meat. Herbivore eats only plants. Okay. We got one last little section. I'm going to call this video done. The environmental changes. We kind of already talked a little bit about this on part 2. We can have some natural events. And if you recall, this one here, we had some slow changing natural events, some fast changing natural events that can change the environment. I'm just going to add a few more here, maybe like a hurricane, a tornado. So those are natural. We don't cause that. Man-made, well, we cause a lot of things. Think about all of our construction. The concrete, steel, can put up city landscapes that vastly change the environment. Byproducts like pollution. Okay. Those are things that can definitely change the environment. Having accidents like oil spills, which would be a type of pollution. Of course, those aren't good. I want you to discuss in the comments below the zombie apocalypse with shovels. So think The Walking Dead, but instead of them eating people, they carry shovels and dig. Interesting question. Would that be a natural environmental change or a man-made environmental change? Be interested to see what you think. So put a comment down below. Maybe you might get some extra credit for that too, just because I'm weird. All right, and then lastly, let's finish this up. Carbon dioxide and oxygen cycle. Well, the sun is providing the energy in our system. We know that plants want the oxygen and animals, including humans, want the carbon dioxide. Okay. Well, the carbon dioxide and oxygen cycle needs photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Well, I hope this information helps. It should help you get 100% on this test grade project. It's supposed to be easy. So it's supposed to be a little bit fun by making this nice and pretty and colorful. Stay tuned to part 4. If you didn't finish the other pages, go back and take a look at part 1 and part 2 videos and get a good grade, learn something, and be a success in life.